When Sherry Johnson's mother learned that her daughter was pregnant, her initial reaction was appalling. As the New York Times reports on May 26, 2017, after learning that local authorities were investigating the case, her mother proposed an unorthodox solution: marriage. Sherry recalls her mother asking, "Do you want to get married?" To which she replied, "I don't know." What is marriage? How do I act like a wife? Pressured by her family to avoid a messy criminal case, Sherry found herself in no position to refuse. Less than 2 months later, at the age of 11, she married a man more than twice her age, pregnant. Unfortunately, Sherry's story is not an isolated case. According to Frontline, last accessed on February 9, 2021, Sherry is one of 200,000 minors who have found themselves married within the last 2 decades. Although the number of cases of child marriage has decreased, what hasn't decreased is the number of marital statutory rape exceptions. Across the country, children are finding themselves forced to marry their rapists and abusers, with no one looking out for them, not even the law. So today, we will discuss the problems of the statutory rape exception and its relation to child marriage, analyze its effect on children, before finally seeking some solutions to solve what Equality Now described on February 8th as a get-out-of-jail-free card. For 6 years, Sherry endured physical and emotional abuse at the hands of her husband. After seeking help from a pro bono law office, she received $75 to pay for an attorney. While Sherry may have received financial compensation to leave her situation, others aren't so lucky for 2 reasons: manipulation of existing exceptions and a lack of legal protection for children. First, according to the Department of Justice Archives accessed on February 8, 2021, the statutory rape exception, or Section 2243, was initially created to provide a valid defense against statutory rape. The law holds that any individual can be charged when they knowingly engage in a sexual act with another person who is between the ages of 12 and 16 and is at least 4 years younger than the perpetrator. While the establishment of legal protections is a win for victims, the law provides encouragement for adults to engage in sexual behavior with children as young as 12, and further incentivizes predators to marry them. As Sherry Johnson writes for the Swan Foundation, a group dedicated to finding illegal child marriage within the United States, no one actually protected me. They protected him by placing the handcuffs on me, instead of placing the handcuffs on him, and he was the rapist. Sherry should not have been issued a marriage license, but she was, demonstrating our second obstacle: a lack of legal protection. According to Unchained at Last, an organization dedicated to ending forced and child marriage through direct action, accessed on February 8th of this year, only 4 states have implemented laws making child marriage illegal. Unchained continues. In 21 states, there is no minimum age requirement to obtain a marriage license, and in 17 states, children as young as 13 are allowed to get married. While these statistics are horrific, what's more troubling are states' refusals to change their laws. According to NBC News on September 8, 2019, when California lawmakers introduced a bill that would have raised the minimum age to 18, objections didn't just come from conservatives. They came from an unlikely ally: Planned Parenthood and the ACLU. NBC News furthers, arguing the bill would have intruded on the institution of marriage. These 2 groups prevented the bill from being passed on grounds of lack of data about how widespread the issue actually is. Regardless of whether or not you believe there is sufficient evidence, the facts cannot be denied. Children are being forced into predatory situations, and no one is willing to help. Terry was just 13 years old when she began to be molested by a man within her community. After discovering she was pregnant after several months of sexual abuse, her parents told her she could only keep the baby if she married her rapist. Marrying her husband just weeks later, Terry had her child at 14. For the next 14 months, she would juggle between protecting her child and herself from her abuser, taking care of her home, and completing high school. Terry's story demonstrates our two effects, impacting education and their emotional health. First, according to a report published by the International Center for Research on Women in 2020, girls who marry before the age of 19 are 50% more likely to drop out of high school and are 4 times less likely to complete college. For the children that do make it, retention of these students becomes even more difficult. As Girls Not Brides, a global partnership of 1,500 organizations committed to ending child marriage, describes on their website accessed on February 8th of this year, young girls returning to school are more likely to face stigmatization from their peers, making it less likely for them to return, resulting in, second, an impact on their emotional health. The International Center for Research furthers that for the children who marry before the age of 18, they have a 43% increased risk of developing a major depressive disorder and are 3 times more likely to develop an antisocial personality disorder. Psychology Today continues on May 15th of last year that these individuals are more likely to suffer from anxiety, shock, depression, suicidal thoughts, and PTSD. How is it that in a country like the United States, that prides itself on calling out human rights abuses in other countries, can allow for the marital statutory rape exception to continue, knowing the impact it has upon children? Given the emotional and educational impacts the marital statutory rape exception has upon children, it is critical that we explore some solutions, and there are 2 that we can pursue. First, we must repeal and amend Section 2243, or the marital statutory rape exception. As Danielle Selby highlights for Global Citizen on September 3rd, 2019, children forced into marriage at a young age do not have the rights of adulthood until they turn 18. Donna Peller further explains for CBS News on June 20th, 2020, that because of this, they can't petition for divorce from their abuser, nor can they seek help from a domestic violence shelter or pay for their own medical bills. So today, I am asking you, please contact your U.S. senators and representatives to eliminate the marital statutory rape exception. Second, while repealing this exception is critical, more work must be done to make child marriage illegal. It is unacceptable that in the 21st century, child marriage continues to persist and flourish in the United States. Please check the chat box before you leave. And I've attached a link that will take you to the National Coalition to End Child Marriage. There you will find more than a dozen organizations that can help you get more involved. Today, we've examined the legal problem of the marital statutory rape exception, analyzed its effects upon children's education and mental health, before finally seeking some solutions. Terry and Sherry Johnson were both fortunate enough to escape their abusers. They were the lucky ones. But the fact remains that children across the United States are still being forced into marriages with their rapists without any legal protections. It is our job as citizens to stop the forceful exploitation and marriage of children. Because if we don't speak up, no one else will.